Welcome to the Motivated Martial Arts Podcast. Your hosts, Jackson White and Gavin Cook, have been friends and Taekwondo training partners for over 40 years. This podcast will bring you a mixture of their life stories, martial arts, and business experiences to motivate you in life and throughout your martial arts journey. Adding in a mixture of inspiring interviews and some of the best traditional martial artists around today. So over to your hosts, the Motivated Martial Artists.
Hey, welcome to the Motivated Martial Artists with me, Jackson White.
And Gavin Cook.
This morning we've got a real treat for you. We've got the current assistant coach to the TAGB team, GordonFearn. Hi, Gordon.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good, thank you.
Yeah, really good. Hey, pleased to get you on this morning. Hope we haven't kept you from anything.
No, thanks for having me on. Looking
Great.
forward to it.
Good stuff. Right, Gordon, let's kick things straight off. So the people out there, they want to know, how did you get into Taekwondo? Give us a bit of an insight into your early years. Let's really let them know how you got involved in martial arts.
Okay, so the way I got into martial arts, well, I used to play a lot of football when I was younger, up to the age of 9, and I was actually on the junior junior team many years ago.
Is that for Derby County?
I remember playing for Derby County, yeah.
Well, you had a lucky escape there then.
Definitely did. That was something that my dad was really pushing me for. He's a big football fan, even though he's a Sheffield Wednesday fan. But I remember playing football once, and there was a guy on the same team. He already did martial arts, Taekwondo, and I remember speaking to him about it and said, what do you do? And he told me a little bit about it. I said, I'm going to fancy trying that. So I gave up football there and then, much to my dad's dismay, and took up TKD, which was at our local town hall. The only martial art that was in our town, because I come from a little town in Derbyshire, in Ashbourne. And I think the kickboxing was another club, but apart from that, it was just TKD. And I remember walking through the door my first night, seeing all the red belts and above. They were doing flying kicks, spinning kicks, breaking boards. To me, I was just amazed by it all. And then I took my first lesson. Back then, we used to train for 2 hours each night, twice a week. 2 hours each time, and it was very disciplined. I remember my first instructor, his name was Malcolm Anderson. He used to bring a stick to class, so if there's any stances wrong, he'd hit you with a stick.
Yeah, good old school.
To cut your ears off. It was old school, yeah. And I'll be honest with you, he had most of the guys, the women, and the kids in tears. You could never get away with stuff like that nowadays. But the crazy thing about it was, we all went back every single week.
It's like a sadistic addiction, isn't it? Because certainly when I grew up through martial arts, a knuckle on the head, a knuckle on the hand, that was just commonplace. To be quite honest, I must have been a bit silly because I didn't learn the first time. But you soon start picking up the stances, and even to this day, I like to think I've got a decent walking stance.
Yeah, well, that's debatable.
Yeah, the jury's definitely out on that one.
Okay, enough said.
Yeah. So it was old school era, and when we sparred, then we didn't have any sparring pads on, as you guys could probably remember as well.
Yeah.
So that was pretty brutal, because there's no kids against kids. It was whoever was stood in front of you, that's who you were sparring.
Yeah. And how were the adult instructors the other adult students when you were sparring as a kid? My recollection is they didn't care that you were a junior. Most of them had no control, of course, no sparring gear. And if you didn't learn to move pretty quickly, you got hit, and quite often quite badly hurt. Is it similar for yourself?
Yeah, you did it. And if you ever actually caught them with a shot, whether it was a little punch or a kick, that would make things worse as well for you. So
it's like poking the bear.
Yeah, definitely. But looking back, I don't remember being mentally scarred by any of that, because I actually quite enjoyed that, maybe not at the time, but looking back, it's the kind of things that sort of make you later on in life, I guess.
Yeah, I suppose, as they say, it's character building. But I think back in those days, that sort of behaviour, let's call it behaviour because that's what it was acceptable. I think, fast forward 20, 30 years, certainly both yourself, myself and Gavin, we're all instructors. That's not the sort of behaviour you could get away with, or even want to implement or execute within your classes now, I'm sure.
No, definitely not. I mean, you go straight to jail if you're doing that kind of stuff. But I remember that instructor. I mean, he was around the club for about a year and a half when I was there. He'd owned it for quite a while. But then my next instructor, who I do class as my instructor, Master Tom Coleman, who's still around, who was a great martial artist and still is a great martial artist. So he sort of changed the club and introduced us all to competitions and seminars. He just changed the club completely, and it became a great place. You know, the discipline was there, but it wasn't as brutal. But people still trained just as hard and actually got better. Thanks to people like Tom.
Was it your instructor Tom that obviously got you involved with squad training?
No, it got to the point, as we've all probably had this, you get to the point where you're getting quite good at sparring and you sort of outgrow the club. There's nobody really for you to spar.
Yeah.
So then I was very fortunate in my area. We had the likes of Tony Sewell and Master Ralph Minotts.
Yeah.
So I think Tony Sewell was on his way out. He went the GTI back then. But Ralph Minott, luckily enough, he was around. So Tom sort of pushed me in that direction. And like anything, I never looked back. I went to Ralph twice, 3 times a week, and he transformed me as a fighter and you know, taught me a lot of the early days sparring, and it was awesome. You know, he's a great coach, as I'm sure you guys know anyway.
Yeah.
And he was a great fighter himself as well.
Okay, so how old were you when you started to become successful in the competition side of Taekwondo?
Well, I got my black belt because I was introduced to competitions quite late on my career. It's probably when I was a red stripe, and my first tournament, I remember my first tournament, as we all probably do, and I got a bronze medal in the sparring, but I could hardly touch my knees at that time. I wasn't very flexible. I didn't really know what I was doing. It wasn't until I started to become red belt, black stripe, I started to get better and better. Yeah. And then before I knew it, I was in the black belt divisions. When I was 15, I think I spent one competition as a junior black belt. I came away with a gold and a silver medal, I think it was, in the English Championships. And then straight after that, I became 16, and then you went straight up into the adult division, and there was no cadets, straight into the adults. So then I was fighting European and world champion straight away, and that was a big lesson, big learning curve for me. Definitely.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, Gavin and I, we were talking about this only yesterday, where we used to compete at 15 years old in some of the freestyle competitions. You know, win those fairly easy, I'd say. And then we'd go into the lightweights men's division at 15.
Straight after, in the same competition.
Same competition. You know, and that to me, in our mindset, there was absolutely nothing wrong with that back probably about 20 years, or 30, 40 years ago. Nowadays, you know, it's unthinkable. You know, we've obviously learned through sports science that you've got to integrate the competitors and slowly over a period of time, rather than just throwing them into that ring.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I mean, nowadays, definitely. I think for me, it was probably the best way for me to learn, because I learned, I guess you learn the hard way, or you're thrown in the deep end, so you've got no choice but to just get on with it, really. And for my first few competitions, or first few years as an adult, I remember getting smashed up in the first round every single time, and it was sort of my goal to get past the first round. But as I got more experience, got older, got stronger, you know, that obviously changed over the years.
Yeah. So going back to, so you got your black belt when you were 15 then, Gordon. Who did you get your black belt under? Was it the committee members, or was it Heo Chow?
Yeah, it was Grandmaster Heo Cho. So to give you an idea of the size of the grading, then I remember we did it in Dean Street in Derby. Okay. And there was 19 of us going for our black belt at the time, compared to like the 500 or 600 that grade every 6 months now. Yeah. But yeah, it was with Grandmaster Heo Cho. Yeah, it was 19 of us, and I remember Tony Sewell, he was one of them. He was grading for his 4th at the time as well. So yeah, very small gradings.
Well, they were certainly different back then. I know. I did my black belt with Heo Chow, and I was 15 as well. You know, and I remember having to break in front of him. They set the horse up and everything, and he sat there and he was just like, roundhouse. Then you had to go and do like smash a board, and it was just, you know, it's a brutal grading, really.
So how do you think that gradings back then compare to how we're doing them now? Do you think they're better?
I think they're better now, because you've got obviously 5 different grandmasters watching you now, so and they all have their own qualities. Whereas Heo Cho, he took the results back to Los Angeles, and 3 weeks later it was either pass or fail. So I think now, kind of things with the instructors watching the grading as well, you can give your students feedback, and you know yourself, you know, whether your students have got through. Generally, if you're watching the grading as well. So I think from that aspect, you can give better feedback. Yeah,
and I think also there's more transparency as well. And I think that's key as well. You know, having that transparency, and that allows you to give that feedback, both from the committee members and also as an instructor sitting there watching the students. So I think, you know, from that perspective, I think most definitely there's been an improvement in the way that people are graded. Just going back to your competitive days, Gordon, how old were you when you actually got into the TAGB squad?
That was 1996 when I got into the team. So how old was I then? 18.
Okay.
19.
Yeah.
And what are the memories of your first trip out with the team?
My first trip, the clean version, or no?
Definitely the clean version.
It was in Russia. It was my first trip, and again, it was quite daunting because there was a lot of different personalities on the team then, and I was like sort of one of the new kids on the block. And my best friend, he'd been on the team for a couple of years before me, Joseph Skembry. So we were like the young people that, you know, I don't want to say get picked on, but you had a little bit of stick, to say the least. And we were fairly quiet compared to some of the other personalities. But yeah, again, that was a tough tournament. It was you're out there, and I still look up to Grandmaster Oliver and Grandmaster Walton, and you know you look up to those guys, and then suddenly they're in your corner coaching you, and it's quite an amazing feeling. At the time, it was fairly scary. You didn't want to let them down, and so you had a little bit of pressure there as well, or quite a bit of pressure at that sort of stage. Yeah. But yeah, it was quite a rough tournament as well. There was a lot of blood. I remember being a lot of blood there. So
yeah, and certainly,
it was a tough tournament.
Yeah, definitely. My experience, having been on the team with you, as the new person, it is daunting because you're ultimately you're taking someone else's place. That person's been in the team for quite a period of time. They've built relationships, they've got friends. I remember very, very soon after starting squad training, the first thing you did, come up, introduce yourself, actually really made me feel really welcome, and actually broke down a lot of barriers straight away. So that really helped my transition into the squad, which was great. And also when you're out in the international competitions, your relationship with the grandmasters changes because they're your coaches, they're your mentors, and they're helping you. So you see a different side of these individuals, which actually necessarily, I think probably, fair to say, 99% of the TAGB wouldn't actually see.
Yeah, definitely, and that's just quite a special thing. But you as a fighter earn that right as well because of the hours you put in through the training and the competitions that you win. And yeah, I always saw it as a kind of reward type thing as well, to have that kind of relationship with the guys. Because going on from my earlier conversation when I started training with Ralph, I then was fortunate enough to start going to squad training with Ralph, who was on the team at the time. And then I met Grandmaster Walton, and then he became one of my mentors as well. So it was win-win for me. I had people like Tom, Ralph, and Kenny. It was just fantastic, really. Kenny still to this day is my instructor. He's my current instructor, and I'm still learning stuff off him all the time. He's been a great mentor, role model, and I'm glad to still be working with him.
Can you remember back to when you won your first world title, Gordon, and where was it?
It was in Poland in 2001.
Whoa, that's a tough place to go and win a title.
It was, and the worst bit about that one was we didn't fly to that tournament. We actually got on a coach journey, and I
savage.
64 kilograms, and I remember meal planning all my stuff. So I had certain meals, but the journey took longer than we thought. I'm sure it took nearly 2 days because we got stuck at the border as well, and that was a long time. We finally got there. I don't actually remember weighing in. I don't think there were any scales when we finally got there. But I mean, there was a lot of complaints because of that. Oh, this weight and that weight. But in my head, I tried to keep a level head and thought, you know what, I can hold my head high and say I did actually make the weight, whether there was scales there or not. So, and then the actual performing. Then I had a really tough fight. I think it was five rounds I had. The final fight was against a Polish guy from southern Poland, actually. He mixed in a bit of WTF and ITF. Quite a tough match. I remember I got a picture of myself with Mr. Walton raising his arms, and the Polish guy's got a nosebleed. But it was a really good battle because he was a great kicker and he was a good puncher, like myself as well.
What would you say your highlights been then, Gordon? Obviously, if you joined the squad in 1996, and I know you only recently retired, didn't you? Obviously, and taking the job of obviously team captain and assistant coach. What would be your highlight really?
I've had a long career. I've been very fortunate. I've had a long career compared to most. So there's been lots of highlights. But I think winning world titles, you can never get bored of winning those. I think winning team world titles.
Just to recap on that, Gavin wouldn't know.
No. Who's Gavin again?
I'm sure it's wonderful, Gordon.
Yeah, it's a nice feeling, Gavin. You can come down and polish mine.
Yeah, anytime. Yeah. I tell you,
fancy trip down south.
I'll just borrow. Can I borrow them for the weekend? Take it to school.
I've got a better idea, Gavin. You just go and make a cup of tea. Me and Gordon will talk about it.
Yeah. But going back to the highlights again, all the titles to one side. I think becoming the team captain, that was a great honour, because I knew I followed in big footsteps here. Yeah. With Bob Howe, Kenny Walton. Roger Lawrence was the captain before me, but definitely Master Walton, Bob Howe, it's still heroic figures in TKD, in my TKD history. So to follow in their footsteps was amazing. And
certainly, being captained by you when I was on the squad, it was great. You knew what to say at the right time, just to get everyone motivated and to get out there and do their job and do what was necessary to win. So yeah, really good.
Yeah.
So
that was quite a daunting. Sorry, going back to the captaincy thing, it was actually quite a daunting role at first. It was like suddenly, people are looking up to me, and I had a great team around me as well. I had when in the early days, I had Alan Jackson, I had Warren Weiss, as we all know. I had a kid called James Spencer, and I was sort of the old boy on the team, even though I was quite young still. And it was I felt like a lot of pressure was put on me then. But I learned to harness it and I thrived off that pressure. When you went out there and Master Walton was saying, this fight's on you. If you win this fight, the team are winning. And I would have said in my early days, I probably would have crumbled. But when he'd said stuff like that to me, it just cheered me on some more. And he wanted to perform not only for Master Walton, for yourself, but the team as well. That was a great feeling. I
can imagine. Is it fair to say, Gordon, that being a captain and the leader, it's not something you just did, it's something you grew into over a period of time. You didn't just become this fantastic leader of the TAGB multi-winning team. It's something that you were allowed to grow into and grew into and accepted that challenge.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I was always quite strict with my training. I like to do things the right way. I don't like to cut corners, and I think as a captain, I felt more inclined to do that even more and refine it some more and become a leader that people could look up to and ask if they wanted advice. It's like, when I say to my junior black belts, if my juniors want to talk to you and ask you about a pattern, you need to know those answers. And it's the same when you're captain. If people are asking you for answers for whether it's training, techniques, diet and stuff like that, you need to have those answers. So yeah, it was something that at first it was like bang, you're the captain, but it was something that it was really, I did grow into, and it got better and better, imagine over time as well.
Now you've retired. You're now the assistant coach of the national team for the TAGB. How has your role morphed and changed? What differences have you noticed?
Well, as the captain, you felt like a role model and a superhero, and you felt like there was pressure for you to perform all the time. Whereas as a coach, you feel more like a father figure, more like a parent type thing. Yeah. And the kids nowadays, and we've got such a good young team now, and they do listen to you, and you can say anything and their eyes are fixated on you. So because they know where you've been, it's quite a nice role to be in as well. It's very different to being the captain, and I didn't think when I first retired, because it took me a few years to get over the fact that I had stopped fighting because I've been there for so long. To do the coaching role, it was very different, but I've learned to love it even more now, and I can obviously see what Master Walton's had the privilege of doing over the years and still does now. Yeah, you do feel like a parent when you're more of a coach. That's how I feel anyway.
So it's moving away from the sort of competition circuit then, Gordon. Obviously, we all know you've got a very successful club in Dorset. How's the club going, and is it growing well and doing everything you need to do?
Well, it is. But funny enough, when I was competing, I used to train 2 to 3 times a day. I had, as some may know, I used to drop a lot of weight. So it was very time consuming when I was competing for tournaments. When I stopped competing, my school doubled in size to, I have 450 students plus now, and that it's great, but it presents new challenges, good challenges in a different way. As in, I have staff now, so I have to manage staff. But I'm always looking for new ways of changing stuff. I do my own app and website, and speaking to you guys, sometimes we always bounce ideas off each other, and you take away what you need and try and implement that in your club as well. Yeah. And then there's the other side, which is not the not so great side is the paying taxes and VAT and stuff like that. But as you get bigger, that's the kind of thing you have to sort of deal with. So.
Absolutely. I mean, I know we have chats about this, and I've chats with Jackie. Obviously, when we're all into sort of systemising everything as much as you can, So I'm certainly, that's always my focus with my business, is to make sure that there's people and there's systems in to do all the medial tasks, so you can focus on doing the things that you enjoy, which is teaching the club.
I think also, I mean, I like to keep myself busy. I mean, I do some work in America as well. I mean, with my ninja classes, we concentrate on age-specific classes. So we split our groups up. We have an 18-month to 36-month class. We have 3 and 4 year olds, 5 and 6 year olds, and we look at their stages of development, physically, intellectually, emotionally, and socially.
Yeah.
And this is something I've been very fortunate to get involved in America with a woman called Melody Schumann, or Melody Johnson as she's called now.
Yeah.
They've given me a little bit of work, and it's not massive, but it pays for me to go over there 2 or 3 times a year, and I love going to America and just learning off a different set of martial artists, from different backgrounds, which is also quite nice as well.
Yeah.
And it keeps me busy.
Business.
And I've just got into nutrition. I've just started a nutrition business as well, so that's another thing. So I'm always keeping my fingers in different pies.
Yeah, always branching out.
Yeah, always.
But the Ninja Skill program is good, though, isn't it? I know I run that in my club, as you know.
That's right. Yeah.
And and it's really.
And who recommended it to you? Who guided you along that?
It was a chap called GordonFearn. I don't know if you know him.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Did you hear that, Jackie?
Yes. Yeah. When I'm a full-time instructor, that may be something I consider dipping my toe into. Moving on then, Gordon. So, you obviously you're spending a lot of time circulating with other types of martial artists, not just Taekwondo, which I personally endorse, because to give yourself that breadth of experience, you're not going to gain all that other martial arts experience from yourself, but you can certainly leverage that from other people. Moving back into the Taekwondo phase, as the assistant coach, I know there's going to be a lot of our members or podcast members out there that are listening. What do you feel, as the assistant coach, some of these younger athletes or aspiring athletes, how should they approach trying to get into the TAGB squad? What can they do to improve, really to get themselves noticed by yourself and Grandmaster Walton?
I think firstly the basics, go at the basics, train at your club regular, go to national squad training regular, and then I think when it comes to a competition, no matter what level you're at, you should always set yourself goals, no matter how big or small they are, and try and achieve those little goals. Don't just set them too big, because if you set them too big, you probably won't get there. If you have little goals, it could be something like I said earlier on, try and get past the first round, or if you're getting to the finals, try and perform the way that you've been training, because sometimes, as we all know, when we get in there, what you've been training doesn't always transpire in the ring, because the pressure's on there and you've got punched in the face, you've got kicked around the head, or something goes wrong. So, and it's just trying to achieve those goals, but also don't get complacent. Don't think, I won this tournament, next tournament's just going to be a given. What I always used to do when I was training, if I felt happy and good and that I was fit, I used to say to myself it wasn't good enough. I'd push myself a little bit further. But obviously being sensible as well, not to the point where you're going to be ill.
Sure.
But I just, one of the biggest things I would say, don't get too complacent. And when you start attending things regular, you win things, you're at national squad training, and you encourage others as well. Both myself and Master Walton will recognise things like that. If you're a team player, that's a big thing that Master Walton always taught me. Team comes first. Don't be there for just yourself. Mm-hmm. Encourage others, motivate others, and obviously you've got to put the work in yourself. No corners cut.
Yeah, so concentration on what you're doing, focus on tasks, and goal setting. Really, the key 3 areas.
Yes,
So
and what I found back in the day was something that Ralph Goff was doing, and that was to write things down, keep a diary. With things of, if you're making a weight, maybe a food diary. If your confidence isn't great, or something in your head that's not quite right, write it down, and then keep reassessing it and try and build on that.
Okay, so we probably need to get Gavin quite a thick notebook, because there's lots in his head that's not right. Might take a bit of time to write it all down.
He's a funny man, isn't he? Yeah, funny man, Jackson.
But I like to think he is. But hey.
Yeah, well, you know it, Gordon.
Oh, well, I always laugh. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
Hey, in terms, obviously being a sort of youngish instructor, I know you like to immerse yourself in sort of the new technology and stuff. How do you feel that technology is going to take a place in martial arts training and coaching in the future? What's your thoughts on that? Like things like wearable technology and things like that.
I don't know about. I know the Olympic style. They have a lot of computer type stuff now with the power generating type stuff, and they use a lot of machines for your actions and stuff like that. In our sport training, we don't use sort of modern technology, and we still got the wealth of experience of Master Walter, and then we've got Sarah Scott now, who's fantastic physio. She's great with warm-ups, injury prevention, like that. And I think more the education of how you should be training now, and training smart is a thing. Training smart and eating smart. I think now I'm doing the nutrition now. I've started to help some of the team members with their food diaries and what they're eating. So I think we all bring something to the table. And I think, going back to what I was saying before, I like to stick my fingers in all kinds of pies. So once I've done that, I look at something else which I can make better. And, it's the same with Master Walter, the same with Sarah. I mean, Sarah has no choice. She has, physiotherapist, you have to keep up to date with stuff. Not necessarily technology, if that's what you're referring to on the training side. I think it's just being smart and understanding your own body and what it can do and what it's capable of doing.
I think you're absolutely right there on that point, Gordon. Self-development is key as a coach in any sport or any type of discipline, whether it's at work, selling items, or a procurement officer or a sports coach. If you stagnate and don't continue to develop your skills, learn the latest technologies, latest sciences behind chosen profession, you will get left behind, because opinions, evidence, science changes, and we're constantly learning more. So you've got to continue self-develop. So I totally agree.
Yeah.
I was going to say
finish off there, or are you going to finish off?
Go on. No. You finish off, Gordon. You're the guest.
No. Just remember who the master is here right now.
Okay, yeah, sorry, master.
What I was going to say, on the other side as well, it's quite easy to have information overload and to collect a load of information and think, I have all this information now, what should I do with it? You have to choose what's going to work for you. You have to make that decision yourself, nobody else, and just roll with it. And if it doesn't work, stop it, try something else.
Okay then, Gordon. Some real good insight there. One thing I'm keen to know, you've stopped competing. You're still looking trim. I know we joke about how my body fat percentage is always lower than yours. So, what sort of training are you into at the moment, you personally?
Can I just ask what your percentage is at the moment, Jackie?
Well, that's undisclosed at this time, but we can talk about it in private.
I'll tell you what mine is. Mine. I just come back from a week in America, which is sugar and carb city. I am 7% body fat right now.
Never.
Okay, but you are quite small. You've always fought that lightweight, haven't you? I've always been a light heavy.
Yeah.
Hey, my guns are catching up yours now, Jackie.
Okay, yes. Toy guns.
I do. Again, when I stopped competing, there was a massive void in my life, as I'm sure you can appreciate this. It's like, well, what am I going to do now? Because going to the gym, doing a regular session in a kick fit class, it just doesn't cut it, because we've done so many crazy things over the years with Master Walton, with the squad training. Normal gym training is boring. So I've now started to do CrossFit over the last 6 to 7 months, and that has filled the void. And I've got into training twice a day in CrossFit.
Brilliant.
There's lots of things to learn in CrossFit. There's the Olympic powerlifting. There's a CV, the skipping side, which is fantastic, because I'm pretty strong at that anyway. And then there's the gymnastics side, which is, you're learning all new stuff again. So handstand walks, handstand push-ups, muscle-ups, pull-ups. It's such a great sport that I've got into. And I do actually wish I'd found CrossFit when I was competing, because I think that would have taken me to another level again. Because since I've been doing CrossFit, I've got trimmer, I've got stronger. I'm ripped constantly now, whereas before when I was competing, I was more ripped when I was trying to make a weight. And again with nutrition as well, I eat smarter as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, presumably a lot of those gains come from your sort of nutrition.
Yeah, well, nutrition and putting the hours in again. You can't just turn up to a CrossFit session and think you're going to be the best in there, because there will be a workout which will just flatten you.
Yeah.
You could do like I was doing a lot of the CV workouts, the running, the double unders, some of the pull-up workouts, I was okay. Start lifting heavy weights and it slows you right down.
Yeah.
You've got to be an all-rounder. You can't just be good in one area.
That's it. I fully endorse. Even when I was on the squad in my later years, the reason I think I managed to keep going for so long was just constantly engaging in different types of training. Where we see a lot of our younger athletes now in Taekwondo and in other martial arts as well. They focus specifically just on martial arts or kicking, and they don't mix their training up. To me, that's a huge advantage. And I have this discussion with Sarah Scott, the team physio, as you well know. And it's something that she's trying to push onto the younger generation of fighters to really mix their training up, but also still make it specific to Taekwondo.
Well, I think we're getting to the end of this interview. I think at the moment, Gordon. One question we've just sort of been asking all the guests really at the end of it, with this called the Motivated Martial Arts Podcast, is just certainly for you. I mean, I know you live down south, and all those years, every Saturday you had to drive up to Loughborough or Nottingham and do the squad training. What's kept you motivated all these years?
I think going back to the goal setting, it was like in the early days was to get better at sparring, and then I was okay at sparring. So then was to win a few competitions, and then was to make the team, and then once you're in the team, win titles. And I think that the thought of winning a title and winning stuff with your team and senior team as well. I mean, they were all like my brothers and sisters, the team. So getting out of bed and driving, it used to take me 3 hours to get there. I still do it, but not as often nowadays. 3 hours to get there. We do a 3-hour crazy session and 3 hours back. And driving back, it was never a problem. It was all good. I love seeing the team. I love training with the team, and I loved seeing the team achieve like I was achieving as well. And that was a big motivator because everyone was happy, and even if somebody wasn't achieving, then we'd all help each other. So it was so nice being part of.
Brilliant. And in terms of your new nutrition business and your Taekwondo stuff, is there any way that any of the listeners, if they want any advice, they can contact you?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a Facebook page, so if you want to contact me on Facebook, I've been working, because I'm still studying at the moment, so I've done a good year and a half now. I've got most of the qualifications, but now I'm going into a master's, which is at another level. So I have been dummying with a few of the international athletes in the UK. Brilliant. And they've been finding the benefits. As you can imagine with my schools, I've got a lot of parents who want nutritional advice. So I've been trying to use it on that side as well. So great. Yeah, if anyone needs some advice, don't hesitate to give me a call.
Fantastic.
Okay, I'm sure if any of the members of our Motivated Martial Arts Facebook group want to get in touch, you'll be happy to answer some of the questions if they posted it on the site, I'm sure, wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Gordon,
always happy to help.
Thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on for this episode of the podcast. Good luck in the future with the nutritional stuff, and I'm sure we'll catch up very soon.
Yeah, thanks, Gordon. Great to speak to you again.
My pleasure. My pleasure, guys. But one more thing, you didn't ask me what my greatest achievement outside of martial arts was.
Did we not?
Go on then. I know you're burning to tell us. Go on, what is it? I've got a good idea what it is, but go ahead.
Speaking to us too today.
My son Luca Fearn is my greatest achievement outside of martial arts.
Good for you.
Fantastic, mate.
He's now 7 years old.
How's he getting on with his training? I've seen some of the pictures on your Facebook page.
He's good. He's a well-mannered boy. He's lovely. He's got his red stripe. He is a better swimmer than he is at TKD. He's 7 years old. He can swim 40 lengths front crawl unbroken. So he's pretty good swimmer. But hopefully the fighting and the TKD will click at one stage. But red stripe's not bad at that age.
Well, we'll keep our eyes peeled at the competitions in a few years. Then.
Lovely,
right, guys.
Thanks very much, Gordon.
Thanks, Gordon.
My pleasure. See you later.
See you soon. Take care. Bye bye.